on that Chantry climb that I'm coming out of AC, there was this girl from New Jersey. And she and I, we paired off each other, and we became like she drove me, I drove her. I'll never see that girl again, but I'll always remember her. And I have so many memories of these cool people I've met when I'm just in the trenches struggling. Welcome to another episode of the Bahia Asuncion Trail Runners.
Here I'm joined with my dad.
Runner profile, that's what we're trying to get to.
He is a great runner who has done some crazy feats. He's run many 100-miler races. He's done the 4x4x48 challenge. He's done some crazy stuff. So, introduce yourself.
As Gabriel said, I'm Zac Johnston. We live full-time in Bahia Asuncion, Baja California Sur, Mexico. It's a tiny little village, maybe 4,000 people in the middle of nowhere. It is a lovely town. We've had our house here since before Gabriel was born, and now, like I said, we're here full-time. I've been running the trails here forever. Love the place. There's definitely some challenges, but I'm semi-retired. I was a former teacher in San Diego. I teach a couple classes here and there just for the fun of it. But other than that, I work in the garden. I like to exercise. I love to cook. We're making pizzas tonight. I brew my own beer, and yeah, it's kind of what I got to tell you for that. I never was a runner as a kid necessarily. I remember my dad kept bugging me and bugging me and bugging me. He was a runner, and he'd always want me to run. I didn't want to, and finally one day, he was doing the Fresno Bee 10K Father's Day run. And I was like, fine, I'll go run with you. I PR'd that day. It's the fastest 10K I've ever done. I ran it in like 42 minutes. And he was just like shaking his head, why don't you run? And then I didn't run after that. We grew up in Fresno, California. I was in sports. I played soccer and football and baseball, things like that. But I didn't really get into running until later in life. I had a little small business in Fresno, a little coffee store business, and I sold that and moved to Santa Cruz, California. And at the time, I was drinking a lot, and I used to smoke a lot, packing half a day. And I knew I wanted to get out and explore Santa Cruz. And if you haven't ever been to Santa Cruz, California, there's these beautiful mountains that go behind Santa Cruz along the coastline, and they get up to, 2,000-3,000 feet. So I started hiking. It's all the old redwoods. And so I started hiking. And then I actually got into riding, not mountain bikes, but road riding. And I would ride up and over the summit. And anyway, this is kind of a long story, but there's a reason why I'm going there. Yeah, so I started getting to biking a lot. And so I started doing these bike rides. I started doing 50-mile bike rides. I worked in San Jose across the hill, and some nights I'd ride over to San Jose to pick up my paycheck and then ride back, which is going over the mountains, and that was fun. I did a week-long bike ride from San Francisco down to Los Angeles, which was really cool, and that was like 560 miles. And I just really got into long-distance biking. At the same time, I started hiking, and it was the same sort of deal. I just go up these 20-mile hikes. We moved to San Diego, and I started getting into triathlon, and I started doing shorter distances and longer distances. And next thing you know, I'm doing Ironman Distance Triathlons, and so that's kind of how I got into the trail or into running. So I did Ironman Canada in 2005. I did Ironman Coeur d'Alene in 2007, and then you came along, and I was like, I don't have time to train with a kid because the first year you were born, I stayed at home to raise you. Mom was working. So I was like, what else can I do? And so I'd kind of been doing some trail races then. My first 50K race was in 2008. You were just born. And I had this picture of you. You're tiny in Grandpa's arms. And so that was my first 50K. And that was from the redwoods of Santa Cruz to the ocean. That was kind of cool. But then my first 50-miler was the PCT 50 in 2009. And you actually trained with me for that. We had this little Bob stroller, and you and I would go out and run like 4 days a week. Yeah. And it was the coolest thing because I push you all around, and all the moms are looking at me like, "Who's that dad? Why? What's wrong with that dad? He must be divorced or something." I'm like, "No, I'm happily married." But so we ran, and we actually, I know you don't remember this, we did this 5K. There was this race. So there's this 5K race. I woke up and I saw, there's this free 5K race down at the MCRD, the Marine Corps Recruiting Depot in San Diego. And I'm like, let's go do it. Why not? So we go down there, and I'm so proud of myself because we did like 7-minute miles, I think, for this 5K. And I'm like, I think we're going to win. We're going to be, I was all proud of myself because I never won races, right? Next thing I know, like right before the finish line, I look up, there's this lady in front of us. And I don't care if it's a lady, but here's the deal. She's pushing 2 kids. I was pushing you. So we got second. So that was kind of cool. So when we first moved to San Diego, I started getting into triathlons and stuff as a way to meet people. And so from that, I started running on trails, so when you were born, I just realized, I can't compete at triathlon level anymore. It took too much time. And so I took the opportunity. I'd done my first 50K, like I said, when you were born. And I was like, let's do our 50 miler. And so we had trained all the time, and that was really cool. And that was in 2009. And so we trained, and like 3 days before the race, a Navy helicopter crashed on the course. And I was like, man, it sucked that the helicopter crashed, but they were going to cancel the race. And fortunately, they found a way to reroute it, and they rerouted the course onto the existing San Diego 100 mile course. And at that time, the San Diego 100 mile course did 2 loops. And so we did one of those loops. And so I was like, I wonder if I could do 1 loop, could I do 2 loops? And so just one thing came to another. And so, I started training, and I did my first 100K, I think in 2013, maybe, Cuyamaca 100K. One of my favorite races all around. Scott Krellin, Couch Krellin. Cheers to you, put on a good race. And then I think my first 100-mile race was San Diego 100 in 2014. So I finished that. I've done that a couple times. Angeles Crest, my toughest race, one of my favorite races. I finished that too. So some of the best memories of my lifetime have come from running. Some of my best friends, some of my best memories. And I want to keep doing that. Running makes me a better person. I am a happier person, mental health-wise, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I am who I am because of running.
Perfect, and that leads on to the next question, which is what are some of your favorite memories out of races, specifically?
I've got a lot of them, but I won't bore the audience with all of them. Seeing you, seeing Michaela, seeing Tracy, those are always the top memories. Here is one of my favorite memories. San Diego, my first San Diego 100. We are climbing, and Tracy was pacing me. And I normally don't get blisters, but for some reason I had these crazy blisters. It's like I had blisters underneath blisters. And we're going up Champagne Pass, which is this long climb out of Noble Canyon. And there's this huge orange moon, and these warm breezes coming off the desert. And it's just crazy. I'm going to get tears thinking about this, but it was like one of the most romantic nights I've ever had with your mom. But I'm telling you, I would take one step and I'd have a tear down my eye from pain. And then we take another step and another step. But it's like, that to me is what running, especially suffering, is about. Is it tears you. It's like an onion. It takes you down to your core. You can't pretend to be someone you're not. So that was a great memory. I have another memory. Angeles Crest, tough race. And I told your mom before I went into it, I promised her, I said, I will not quit. If you say I can do this race, I promise I won't quit. And I did the race, and I sat down, and I'd done this, the last 25, I'd fallen 3 times, my glasses are broken, I've been throwing up all night, just a rough day, and I sat down and at Chantry. If you go any farther from that, you're going to be out there for a while. There's no way to come and get help. And I sat down, and I'd done this, the last 25 miles is like, I don't know, 3,000 feet of climbing from there. It's just brutal. I trained up there a lot. And I sat down, and I told my pacer, Sean, I was like, I'm done. And then this old guy came over. I don't mean old like old, I mean old like experienced. He was obviously the aid station captain, and he's like, hey, you've got 15 minutes before the aid station closes. I'm not gonna let you drop until we close. I want you to think about it. And like with 5 minutes left to go, I was like, let's go. And I charged that last 25 miles. I mean, it was crazy. On that Chantry climb that I'm coming out of AC, there was this girl from New Jersey. And she and I, we paired off each other, and we became like she drove me, I drove her. I'll never see that girl again, but I'll always remember her. And I have so many memories of these cool people I've met when I'm just in the trenches struggling. But running has allowed me to experience those things.
What advice would you have for people maybe getting into running or wanting to?
You can do it. Anyone can do it. I am not special. I do not have any superpowers. I'm not a fast runner. As a cross-country coach, as someone who's run forever, I used to be a coach for team and training for Leukemia Society. I've watched big people. I've watched small people. I've watched good-looking people. I've watched ugly. Normal people do special things every single day. So there's no excuses. If you want to do it, it's one step at a time. Make that goal and say, I'm going to do it. You know, but you need to commit to it. You need to believe in yourself. And I think some of my frustrations with people is that I know they can do it, and they give up on themselves. And it's not hard. It's just you have to be dedicated.
What can go wrong in a race? Like, what things have you done? What mistakes?
So many things. I have a good one. And I still have this as a memory. Okay, so one year, San Diego 100, I decided that I was chafing in my boy parts down below, which is no fun. On a 10-mile race, not a big deal. 100-mile race, it gets ugly. Desitin is your friend, by the way. Get some Desitin, stick it into a Ziploc bag, put it in your pack. Trust me, Desitin is your friend. I learned that from, yeah. Anyway, so I thought I was gonna wear, I had these triathlon shorts that I was gonna wear underneath my shorts. And I'd run in them a couple times before. Worked great. Until you get into a 100-mile race and you're eating foods and it's hot, and I started bloating. So I remember going into the aid station at the bottom of Noble Canyon, and I was like, does anyone have a knife or scissors? And they looked at me like, what? I'm like, no, I'm not trying to cut my wrist or anything it was brutal. It was so hot. I cut my shorts. Those gray ones that I wear for bike riding still, and I still have them. I cut them because they were just, so tight. Another mistake is not carrying my own food. I've done plenty of races where you think there's going to be enough aid when you get in there. Well, if you're not the fastest runner, they don't always have what you want. So having that, just a lot of stupid mistakes. But that's what experience comes down to. And so I really want to encourage people, just because you can run a 10K doesn't mean you can run a 50K. You need to learn from your mistakes.
How do you recommend people try out to do these longer events? What would that entail?
Take your time. There's no hurry. Just because you have a successful 50K the first time doesn't mean you will the second time. And I really think sometimes the suffering when you make mistakes, the struggling is more rewarding. I think those are the races I remember the most. I don't always remember the easy aid stations. I remember the aid stations where it's like my body needs food and I go to an aid station and I eat and I walk out of an aid station and I start throwing up. I'm like, oh, there go all the calories I needed. Don't be in a hurry. And I think that's just good advice. And just enjoy the running. Don't feel like you need to accomplish a distance.
Why do you want to host a trail race here in Bahia Asuncion? We've had 2 years. We're working on our 3rd. Why is it so important?
We've had our house here for 17, 18 years, and I've been running the trails here. And I've run a lot of places. I've run a lot of miles in a lot of beautiful places. I firmly believe that the trails that we have here are so diverse. They're so beautiful. The more that we became a part of the community here, the more I'm like, I can't believe the people that live here don't know about these trails or don't use them. It's such a beautiful resource here, especially with the temperate weather we have here. You can run year round here. Our sports director for the community approached us the first year to do the race, and we did it, and it was cool. I saw these smiles on the people's faces, And then we did our race last year, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. It's a struggle. On a lot of levels, because I've never, this is my 3rd year putting on a race, and I'm teaching others what it looks like. They've never been to a San Diego 100, so how can I expect them to understand what it looks like? And then there's, I don't speak Spanish as well as I wish I did, and just there's frustrations with that. I think for me, I think our town deserves so much more than it is. And I'm not saying that I want to change the town. I want to enable others to believe in themselves, that they can do it. And so, for example, a good friend of ours, she wanted to do the 5K one year, and we talked her into doing 10K. She didn't think she could do it, but once she did it, she was like, "Oh, that wasn't that bad." And that's the same thing. Like, we deserve so much better. And so it's just this challenge of mine that I want to enable others, such as you, such as Andres, such as Grace. I want to hand it over and have you guys make this race into something great. I'm telling everyone out there right now, I want this race to be the top 10K trail championship race in Mexico. I want the elite runners coming from all over to race this race. That is our goal. Because we live in a great place, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of frustrations that go along with the race, but that's kind of my driving thing. But this year we reached out to one of our sponsors, who I'd love to thank, is Baja Bound Insurance. And they sponsored us, and so our race shirts are going to look something like this. The logo's the words are a little bit different. But yeah, they gave us a huge, generous donation. So we are doing these dry fit shirts for the race, which is new. Another good friend of ours, who I've run hundreds of miles with, Cesar Salas. He and his wife, they have this awesome company, and they're making these custom-made medals. This is the prototype. I want to give another shout out to our good buddy Alvaro in Santa Rosalia, and all the runners in Santa Rosalia, the Barendo runners. They've really supported me along the way too, and given me a lot of confidence. So big shout out to them too for our race. So you get these victories, and it's like, well, we went from this last year to this year. What's going to happen next year? You know what I mean? Like, where are we going to be in 10 years? I don't know. So it's really cool. I think leaving this, I just want to say, I just had a great conversation with Caesar, who we mentioned a second ago. And Tracy, I talked to her about this too recently. And, I'm 56 now, and I have a lot of time to reflect, and it's not odd. The memories that stick the most with me out of my lifetime, they revolve around my athletics, my endurance, my struggling. I don't know. I hope more people get out there, because you can do so much more. You're so much more capable than you think you are. When you think you've hit your limit, you probably have 60-70% farther you can go, and I've seen you do this. And then it translates into life. The things that used to bug me at work, the things that used to bug me in life in general, they're not a big deal anymore. I feel like I'm a superhuman after I've done a 100-mile race. Not because I ran the distance, but because I got through the suffering. It's learning that, that's not that big of a deal. So.
Perfect. Well, is there anything you want to tell the audience before we end the video?
If you are traveling to Baja, check out Baja Bound Insurance. Good friends of ours, they've supported our race. Don't feel like you have to do a distance. If you want to get active, go for a walk. Park a little bit farther from the store. One thing I used to do, training for my 100-milers, is as a teacher, I got rid of my chair. So I stood all day. And that was crazy because it was an easy way to get a lot more fitness just by standing. So it doesn't have to be a major change. Small changes add up. Don't feel like it has to be a big deal. Little things add up.
Like you're saying, one thing I've been really enjoying doing these past few weeks is, now that it's summer, almost every afternoon I ride around town on my bike, and I see people I know, so I talk or even just wave, and that adds up as well.
It doesn't help your mental health?
That as well.
It's just being outside, smelling the air, feeling the wind, the smells. Life is wonderful, but I just find that too many people get behind their phones. I'm guilty. Get out there and enjoy life. Come to Bahia Asuncion if you guys ever want to come here and explore the trails. We're happy to take you out. We're happy to share the trails with you. But yeah, I would love to see more people in our town active. And I just don't know how to make it happen. So hopefully your generation and others can encourage more people to get out there and get after it.
Well, thanks so much. You're a huge inspiration to me, and I believe many in the town. So thanks for sharing a bit about yourself and with participating in this interview.
Thank you for having it. So
Perfect.
all right, buddy. Cool.